Hello. Right, let me take that off the screen. I think I might have messed that intro up because I could hear two things playing in my ear, but I didn't know which one was on here and which one. So I just if I messed that up, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Hello again.
hi.
So me and Amy are back this time to carry on our conversation. We covered growing up as Jehovah's Witnesses and what that was like for us as kids. And we decided it would be probably beneficial for other victims as well to share our stories, because I got straight into an abusive relationship after leaving the religion, and due to not being able to go back home, I was stuck in that relationship. And Amy had an abusive marriage as well, and obviously being a witness, you're not allowed to divorce unless
No.
it's for immorality reasons. So even if you're in an abusive relationship as a Jehovah's Witness, you're stuck in that relationship. So yeah, trigger warning. This chat is going to contain some harsh subjects. We're going to cover. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Anthony.
We're going to cover domestic violence and a few other subjects. So I'm so nervous for this one. It's just
Yeah.
I'm in an ahhing whether to name my abuser, but because I don't know, I haven't spoke to him since 2014, which I will mention. I don't know where he stands now. I don't know whether it would be a risk to my safety to mention his name. So I think I'll see how I feel at the end.
Yeah.
And if I feel like I want to name him, then I'll name him. So
I'm naming names today.
I thought you would.
Yeah.
So right, I know it's early, but I need a big swig of wine to start this off. So I've made notes because I knew there was going to be things that I would forget. So I left the religion in '96 and I was aged 21. Because my mum and stepdad had given me 8 weeks to move out, I was very limited with where I could go, what I could do. And when a lad that grew up as a witness came and started being friends, he said that he had a place. If I wanted to, I could move in with him until I found somewhere else to move into. So that was my plan. My plan wasn't to stay there long term. So as you know, mum and stepdad changed my notice to 4 weeks if I went to my boss's birthday party. So I went to the boss's birthday party and then I went back to his house and stayed there. And, you know, things were fine for the first couple of weeks. And then I remember I'd got back from work, and what he'd done was in the room, because it wasn't really a couple, but he'd separated the room with a wardrobe and put my bed behind there. And all my belongings were there, mostly in a suitcase at this point. And I got back from work one day and I noticed that he'd decorated the back of the bedroom door. And I thought, what's he done that with? And then I realised he'd gone into my suitcase, gone through all my stuff, and he'd found these felt tip pens that mum and stepdad had brought me for the anniversary present. And you could blow through them and do like airbrush effects. And he'd got them out. He got them out of my suitcase while I was at work and used it all on the back of the door.
Okay.
And I was like, I can't believe you've done that. Like, that was the last present, one of the last presents I had off mum and stepdad before I left home. And he'd just been in, got it, used it all. And I was like, well, that's an invasion of privacy. And he couldn't understand, like, why I was really annoyed that he did that. And then a few weeks after that, I don't know what I said or did, but my best friend at the time reminded me that I had a handful of peanuts, and he came up and whacked the peanuts, like whacked my hand underneath, so these peanuts kind of like flew everywhere. So there was like small signs of aggression. And then he used to go off a lot to his friend's house down the road, and he'd leave me in the flat on my own, knowing that we didn't have any food, because even though I was working, if we went shopping, he'd be putting stuff in my basket, including like packs of cigarettes and stuff that he wanted me to buy. So like all my wages was just being blown. So I remember the one day, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, and I've spoke about it on Facebook once. He went to his friends and he left me in the flat on my own for hours, knowing that there was no food, we hadn't eaten. And I was that hungry that his bedroom was a mess. It had all clothes on the floor. And there was a packet of these dry Jacob's crackers. Some had fell out the packet, some had been walked on and crushed. And I ate those crackers off the floor because I was that hungry that day. And then he came back a few hours, well, quite a few hours later, early evening, and he just happened to have scraped this money together enough for us to get like lunch from the chip shop. So things like that started to make me think, is this normal? Is this like how a relationship should be like in the outside world? So then he started kind of making me feel icky sexually, because he would want to do dares and it would always like involve something sexual. But me obviously being a naive, just left Jehovah's Witnesses, I didn't know whether that was normal or not normal. So I kind of just dismissed that a bit. And then this mobile phone just appeared. And I said to him, like, where have you got this mobile phone from? And he was like, oh, my ex got it for me and she still lets me use it. And we kind of share it between us. Like, she has it for a few days and I have it for a few days. And I was thinking, okay, that's a bit strange. So then I kind of found out who she was and we went out to this nightclub and she was there. So I thought, do you know what? Well, he'd been telling me as well that she's the hardest girl in her area. Right. So I saw her in the club and I was like, do you know what? I don't care. I'm going to go and talk to her. So I went up to her and she was like, yeah, she's sleeping with him. And I'm like, okay. Wow. I was like, okay, so he's sleeping with both of us. So we went, let's go and find him, because he was in the club. So we both walked up to him and said, we want a word. He shit himself and ran out the club.
Oh my God, I bet he did.
And went home. So then I found out, obviously, he'd been seeing her all along. He said he was going to stop seeing her. I think he did. But then, like, yeah, kind of begged me to stay with him. So I did. Like, I didn't really have anywhere else to go anyway. And then another thing, there was 2 holes in this bathroom wall in this flat. And I covered it up with one of my posters, because I didn't want to keep looking at it thinking, why has he put holes in the wall? And the one time me and my friend went out for drinks, and it was a long way from town, so these 2 guys walked us home. And when they got back to ours, we thought the least we can do, like, is give them a coffee before they go. So I was talking about the holes in the wall to this guy, and he said, show me. So I took him into the bathroom, and my boyfriend at the time was in the bedroom. So I took this guy into the bathroom only for like 2 minutes at the most, just to show him the holes in the wall, and then put the poster back. So then obviously he started accusing me of sleeping with this guy in the bathroom, and I was like, I was in there for like 2 minutes. So, you know, I told him I was showing him the poster. So then other things started where, like, he'd hit me on the leg with a plastic hairbrush. And then, like, so I'd be like, oi, and hit him back, and then he'd hit me harder. So I'd hit him back, and then he'd hit me harder again. And it would get to the point where I'd go off to the bathroom, because I wouldn't want, like, him to see me cry in front of him. And then I started to think, there's no point me fighting him back, because he's just going to keep coming back harder and harder. And then, I don't know whose idea it was, but I ended up getting a bank loan. And the one morning we was in bed, and his landlord just let himself into the flat with these 2 big, massive, bouncer-looking guys. And I was like, what the hell's going on? So they started boxing up my CDs. And you know how many CDs I had when I lived at home? There
Yeah.
was at least 150.
Yeah.
And there was another guy stopping there as well, and the landlord took this dude's like big stacker system stereo. So he left a receipt, and then this guy took the receipt to his lawyer to try and get his stereo back. And then he was supposed to give me the receipt so I could go to a lawyer and try and get my CDs back. But he conveniently lost the receipt. So I went to a lawyer and they just said, basically, we can't do anything without proof that you took them. So I bumped into the landlord and I said to him, I want my CDs back. And he says, you're not supposed to be living here anyway. I said, well, I'd already give my ex about £400 towards the rent. I says, did he give you that? And he says, yes, but he owes a lot more than that.
Oh, really?
And I was like, well, I didn't know this. So he wanted me to pay him £800.
Really?
Get my own CDs back. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I said, I can give you 400. And he says, I know you've got the money. You've been and got a bank loan. Then I realised we'd got the bank loan and gone for tattoos in the tattoo studio downstairs, spoke about our loan, not realising that the landlord owned the tattoo parlour. So he went and told the landlord that I could pay him £800 because I had this loan. So I refused and I never ever got my CDs back, which I was gutted because when I lived at home, I worked full time as much as possible and just brought CDs. Like that was basically my life, was my music. So I was gutted. And then he would also just take my bank card and just like not tell me and go and spend money. And the one time it was Valentine's Day and we was in a cafe and he goes off and comes back 10 minutes later with these two big black bags. And I open them and they're like these helium balloons and these two big massive teddies. And everyone in the cafe is going, oh, how sweet is that? And how cute is that? And I was just like, huh? Where did you get the money for this? He took about 150 quid out of my bank account and went and spent it on me for Valentine's Day out of my own money.
What?
Couldn't see why I was like really annoyed about that. So
Did he not work?
He did now and again, like off and on. We do a bit of agency work and a bit of like glass collecting work. So it was never anything like permanent. So then when we moved into another place, obviously because I'd got the loan and I'm guessing I put down the deposit and we moved into somewhere. And then he'd start smashing things like in a rage and like because I was engaged before I left home, so I took with me a lot of household stuff. But he just like smashed all my glasses, my bowls, and everything. And then I had like an oil burner, and he swiped it off the fireplace, and he sliced his finger, and then he'd just stand there with his finger dripping blood into the jug, trying to fill up a pint of blood. And I'd just be thinking, you ain't right, mate. And then like he'd just cause arguments like before I was due to go to work and then I'd be too upset. So then I couldn't go to work, or he'd phone in work and tell them that I'm not going in. One day he accidentally locked me in the house so I couldn't get out to go to work. And I ended up losing my job because I'd been there 4 years, but I'd had so much time off because of all this. But then after some arguments, when he'd been smashing stuff as well, he'd just like, he'd sit down and start crying and saying that what happened, I blacked out, tell me what I just did. And like, I never believed that he actually did black out. I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then just tried to cover his tracks kind of thing. He always carried like a hunting knife, like a proper jagged edge big blade hunting knife inside his jacket. And I'd be sat in the living room on a chair with the bedroom door next to me, and he'd just be throwing this knife at the door and it'd be bouncing off, and I'd be like, do you fucking mind? That could like just bounce off and stick in me. And he'd just be like, huh?
What
So
weird.
yeah, so then I reckon. Okay, so then other things he did 2 times. He dragged me across the living room by my hair. I can't remember the first reason he did it, but I know that one night we was getting ready to go out with some friends, and it was a summer's night, and I got this crochet top on, and he said to me, I'd either got a bra or a crop top underneath, and he says to me, put a coat on. I says, I don't want to wear a coat. It's a really warm night. He says, put a coat on. I said, I don't want to wear a coat. So he dragged me by my hair across the living room, threw me into the bedroom, and was like, no, put a coat on.
What?
Yeah. So he'd do other stuff, like he'd sit there with a pin and just keep poking it in me, or he got elastic bands and he strung them all together, and then he kept like just snapping it on my leg in the one place. So I got up and I went and locked myself in the downstairs toilet, and it was quite small. And he went and got a screwdriver and was trying to like get the door handle off from the lock so we could get into the toilet. So I sat with my back on the wall and my feet on the door with my legs locked straight. So even though we got the lock off, he couldn't actually get in.
Yeah.
So then eventually, like, he kind of gave up and I let him in. And then he was like, what's your problem? And I was like, you keep flicking me with that fucking elastic band. So I literally like pushed him and he literally fell down the toilet. That shocked him then. And he was like, I can't believe like you just pushed me down the toilet. And then that made me feel better because I'd literally like reacted. But then I was scared that he was going to do something worse to me then after that. And I just remember like I'd be packing my case trying to go, and I don't know where I was going to go, but it's such a long time ago, but I'd be packing my stuff in my case and he'd be unpacking it. And then the one time, like, I think that's what I was doing, and he slammed the bedroom door into me, and I just turned around and went, oi, and whacked him in the chest. And then he went off and he came back 10 minutes later and he was like, you just winded me. And I was like, well, don't come busting in the room, like smacking the door into me. But it was just my natural reaction.
Yeah.
And another time, he wouldn't let me out of the bedroom. So I grabbed him and pushed him harder than what I must have realised. And there was like a plastic window and he went through this plastic window. So that shocked him again. So then I think he'd like leave me alone for a few days. But, you know, the money trouble he got me into, he wanted a mobile phone, so we went to go and ask for one and he got turned down. So then he was like, well, put it in your address. And I was like, what do you mean my address? And he was like, put it in your address, meaning like mum and stepdad's address. So like it totally like coerced me, and I was like, no. And he was like, come on, I need this mobile phone for work and all this stuff. So he ended up getting a mobile phone in mum and stepdad's name, well, address, my name, their address, and he ran up a £400 bill on this mobile phone, which obviously I couldn't pay, he didn't pay. He ran up a £400 bill on the landline phone, which he didn't pay either. And then he wouldn't let me pay Nan, who I'd got the loan off. It was so horrible. Like, when Nan used to come round to collect the money off me, he used to make me hide from her. And like, knowing our Nan, that gutted me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, having to hide from our own Nan because he wouldn't let me pay off the loan that I had. He wouldn't let me pay off the catalogue bill that I'd left home with. So, you know, he literally, I know I'm not going to say he, but somebody says that I blacklisted mum and stepdad's address when I left, but it wasn't me. It was him.
You know, thinking back, like, I remember mum phoning up the catalogue and saying, look, she doesn't live here anymore. And they wiped it all off. But yeah, I remember mum dealing with that. And then I remember, like, you know, when Nan was around saying, you know, well, I haven't been paid, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it was really sad. But like, obviously now I know it wasn't you.
I felt so bad for all that. I was just like, I've just left home, so they're going to see me in a bad light anyway. And then you're putting them all in this debt as well, making it look like it's me.
Yeah.
And then it's only looking back now that I realised that, when it all started coming out about sexual abuse when you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it until afterwards, but I couldn't even have a shower without him getting in the shower with me, trying to have sex with me.
Really?
While I'm just trying to have a shower. He'd wake me up at 6 o'clock in the morning trying to have sex with me. I was like, get off, like, he's acting like this. Like, why would I want to have sex with him?
Yeah.
Like, and he started to make me feel cringy about sex, because then he'd be like, well, what about a massage instead? So I'd be like, okay, I'll pacify him. I'll just let him do a massage. And then obviously he'd take his clothes off then, because a massage is better being naked. So then he'd still try and have sex with me, even though I'd said, no, I don't want to have sex. He thinks giving me a massage would put me in the mood and then I'd want sex. And I was like, no. He wouldn't let me go on the pill because he said one of his ex-girlfriends had gone mental on the pill. So we was using withdrawal method.
That's not reliable.
Well, at the time, I had really no clue about that kind of thing. Yeah. So the one time he got into the shower with me and he just says to me, I think you're pregnant. I was like, what are you talking about? He says, your nipples have changed colour. They've gone brown, and that's what happens when you're pregnant. And I was like, I can't be pregnant. You've been withdrawing. And he was like, I didn't on purpose. I was like, no, this seriously cannot be happening. I was still 21 at this point. And he was like, yeah, obviously I wanted you to get pregnant. And I was like, we've had this conversation. I was in no state of mind anyway to have any kids with what I'd just been through. So we went to the family planning, and obviously he had to come with me because he said I would lie if he didn't come with me. So we went and it came out positive.
Yeah.
And I just said to the nurse straight away, I says, I can't have this baby. Not with how he was, like, even for the risk of the health of the child. Like, how do I know what he was going to do if he got into a mad one? And it definitely wasn't the environment or a person I wanted to have a child with.
Yeah.
So we went to see my friend who was working at a bar, and he told her. And then out of earshot of him, she was like, oh my God, you're having the devil's child.
Really?
And I was like, I'm not. I can't do this. But the nurse had told me that I needed to go back within 7 to 10 days to make sure that I was clear-headed, and that was my decision.
Yeah.
So I went back, and obviously he came with me again, and we was arranging the appointment for me to go to the hospital, and he stormed out of the office, started screaming at all the nurses, why don't I just come back and kill all of you, see how you fucking like it, I'm going to come back and fucking stab all of you. And then I said to the woman, that's why I can't have this child. And she was like, I totally understand. So he went off, and then eventually he come back and met me again, and he said, apparently, I don't know whether he did this, he told me that he went and rang our mum and stepdad and told them. And he said, your stepdad said you're a selfish cow. But when he said that, I thought stepdad, being a Jehovah's Witness, wouldn't have said the word cow. But I never found out, like, if he did actually go and ring mum and stepdad and tell them this was going on, which was another way of him to try and guilt trip me. So we ended up going back to his mum's, and he says, I can't tell my mum. I'm going to have to tell my mum it's an ectopic pregnancy. So then he was like, if I'm telling my mum that, you've got to tell your dad that as well. So I was like, so I said, I'm not lying to my dad. If you want to lie to him, you're going to have to tell him. So if Dad watches this, he doesn't know to this day.
Oh.
But he will do now. So I'm sorry that Adrian lied to you. So then, with all this going on, he obviously wasn't happy. And the one time I was lay on the sofa and he got his hunting knife out and he came and sat next to me and he was like, if you don't want my baby, then I might as well just stab you in the stomach and kill it myself. And I didn't know whether he was serious or not. With how he would been, I didn't put it past him if he was actually being serious. So I used to go and stop at his sister's a bit, and I tried to kind of get away from him by going and stopping there, and I wanted to move in. And I remember I was there, and I was still pregnant at the time, and I was awake early hours in the morning, and I was in such pain, like stomach pain, and I was sweating, and I'd started bleeding. And I'd spoke to his sister about it because she'd not long had a baby, and she got these medical books out, and we read some stuff. And then he rang me at his sister's, and he said, "Oh, your appointment's come through for the hospital." So he'd been opening my post, and he says, "We can't afford to go. We don't have the train fare." Right. He says, "I'll rebook the appointment for you." I knew there was no way he was going to rebook the appointment, so I had to ring round all. We used to ring up and try and find numbers for places. I can't remember what it was called. Is it 100? No, I can't remember. Anyway, so I had to find the right department and everything and rearrange it myself. So I had to make sure we had the money, and I did go. He came with me, trying to guilt trip me again, not to go through with it, and I was just like, no way. Definitely not. I'm not doing this. So then he started accusing me of sleeping with other people because he was like, then the baby's not mine. If you don't want this baby, then obviously you're cheating on me. And there was a lad who we grew up with that stopped with us for a bit, and we went to a nightclub, and this lad put his arm around me and said something to me. And when we got back, I can't remember, it was the same night or the next day, he got that mate up the fence with a bread carving knife to his throat, threatening to kill him because he'd put his arm around me in a nightclub. So he thought I was sleeping with him. And I was like, I wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. He's definitely not my type. Like, he's just an old friend. So he got really pissed off with this guy, and he had at the time a terrapin, and he literally tried to give him salmonella. He got this chicken that was in the fridge, and he rubbed it around the tank that the terrapin was in, knowing that terrapins can give you salmonella if you don't wash your hands after handling them, and he put it back in the fridge. Now, this lad at the time was on some prescription medicines. I think it was some antibiotic it was something to do with, I can't remember what it was actually, but anyway, the whole side of his face swelled up. So he complained to the doctors that it was a reaction to the tablets.
No way.
But I don't think it was, and that made me think, like, you could have fucking killed him.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't bothered. He was just like, yeah, well, he died from salmonella. If it happens, it happens. And I'm just like, what? So the one day after going through a lot of this, I just turned around to him and told him that I fucking hated him. And he says to me, if you hate me, that means you're willing to kill me. So again, he got his hunting knife. He held it to his throat. He clamped my hand around the knife with his hand and said, if you hate me, kill me now. And for a split second, I thought, if I move my hand an inch, this could all be over. But then I thought, I'm not going to prison for you. No way. No. So What have I got up to? Oh yeah, so after that, because I told him I hated him as well, he went out, and I don't know where he'd gone, and he'd come back about 10 minutes later, and he changed his footwear from trainers to these like army power boots, and then went out again. And I was thinking, what's he doing? So when he eventually came back, I was like, what are you doing? He said he was going to go and jump off a bridge because I hated him, but he realised that his trainers weren't heavy enough, so he came back and changed his trainers for boots, so he would fall quicker apparently if he jumped off this bridge. And then, do you know, my heart sank for a minute, and this is going to sound really horrible, because I wish he had, because again, that would have been everything over with. I would have been free from him. Obviously, he didn't. I ended up going and stopping at my mate's for a few days, but her mum said I could only stop there for like 3 days, and then he came looking for me, so then he made me have to go back to his. So then he got bacterial pneumonia from the mushrooms that were growing on the bedroom wall and the mold in this house. So we ended up getting a council place. And just before this as well, he was going to stop at his mum's, but he'd been taking this big bag with him. And I said to him, what's in your bag? And then I found out it was a suit. So he'd be going to stop at his mum's and going to the meetings.
Right.
And then he says to me, I want you to come back to the meetings with me. And I was like, hell no, I haven't even been left a year. I am not going back. I told you that when I left, I was leaving for good.
Yeah.
So I think because I refused, he stopped going. So we moved into another house, which was a council house. And then he'd go out a lot over the road, and he'd been drinking. He'd come back with cans of Tennent's Super, and then he'd fuck off again. And then the one time I bumped into the guy who lived over the road, and he was like, why don't you ever come with him like to our parties? And I was like, because he doesn't invite me. And they were like, oh, okay. So then he started going out to a lot of other parties where he'd come back in the morning and he'd tell me that he'd fell asleep outside in someone's garden and stuff like that. And then I found out that it was a girl's house he was going to, and I was like, yeah, okay, so you're sleeping with her? And he said no, he wasn't. And then I found out that the one time he rang me to say he would be home soon, a mutual friend said that he rang me from her bed.
What?
And I was like, okay. He denied it. I know there was a few other people that he slept with as well. One girl even told me in the pub that she was sleeping with him. So he would never admit to anything like that. So I can't remember what we argued about. He kept smashing things, like tipping. Do you remember all the black ash furniture I had that you put all your TV and stuff on? He'd tip that over and stamp on it, and he just broke everything I ever owned. So then the one very, very last argument I had with him, I was stood in the hallway in this house, and the bedroom door was open, and he got his hand and he literally just like punched me like right in the chest, and I went flying back and landed on the bed. And I was like, that's it, you can fuck off now, I've had enough, get out. And he was like, no. And I was like, get out, or you need to move out, you need to go somewhere else, go move in with your bird that you're seeing. And he was like, no. And I said, look, at the end of the day, if I go to the council and tell them how you've treated me, who do you think they're going to give the flat to? And he was like, okay. So he moved out, but before, I don't know how long before, he'd always told me that if ever I left him, he'd hunt me down and kill me. So I was always like really anxious then, and this is where like some of my major anxiety started from, because even though he'd gone and moved in with somebody else, I was always scared that if I bumped into him that he was going to fucking stab me. I honestly believed that he would. So then I started like having really bad nightmares about him. I think it was about 16 years of nightmares, and I found out he was on Facebook. So this was like 2014 now, and I sent him a message and I told him how much I fucking hated him, and he replied. So I told him about the stuff that I remembered he did to me. He denied some of it. So I ended up saying to him, I thought to myself, I need to take the power back. I need to not be fucking scared of this guy anymore. So I found out that he was doing some work on his mum's house in town. So I arranged to meet him in a very public restaurant bar. And I thought, I'm going to confront him face to face.
Yeah.
This might stop my nightmares. So I confronted him, and he says to me, do you know, he said, I was quite scared to meet you because I didn't know whether you was going to pick up a stool and hit me with it. And I said, to be honest, I didn't know whether I was going to either. And he was kind of like, whoa, because I am a very fucking different person now to what I was back then.
Yeah.
So, like, he denied some things, and then we ended up meeting again. Because after I met him the first time, my nightmares eased up. So I met him again just to do that final bit for me. It was a total selfish move that I wanted to meet up with him and face him because I wanted to put my mind at rest.
Yeah.
So then I met with him a second time, and then I blocked him.
Yeah.
And I haven't like seen or heard or spoke to him since. But slowly, even after all this time, the nightmares are still creeping back in. I dream that I get home from somewhere and he's moved in and he won't go.
Yeah.
Or he's got his knife out and doing stuff, and it's just like, you know, I wanted to, even though some of this stuff has been hard for me to talk about, and I've probably said a lot of it without emotion just to like get it out there, I want other victims to know that have been through this stuff that you can survive it.
Yeah.
You know, you still have nightmares and stuff like that, but there is no way on earth that I would let anybody treat me like that again. And because I couldn't go home, I had all my family and friends who were witnesses had shunned me. I had one best friend and him, and I was stuck in that relationship with nowhere to go. Because I couldn't go back home unless I wanted to be a Jehovah's Witness again. So that just, you know, it just shows how the religion can still really cause damage to your life after you've left. But I want victims to know that have been through this, that, you know, you are definitely not alone.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
So that's the skimming the surface of my heavy experience. So are you ready to tell us a bit about yours?
Yeah. So like you saying you left in 96, I got engaged in 96 to Steve. That was in November. We got married the following August when I was 19. All the while we were dating, especially over the summer, he was like, his temper would get really bad, and like, you know, we'd be sitting at the meeting, and I remember the once that he'd got a Bible reading talk to do, so he'd prepared it all like weeks in advance. But then someone else got up and was doing this talk, and he was like, that's my talk for next week. And I'm like, what are you on about? And he was like, that's the one I've prepared for next week. And I was like, well, you must have done the wrong one then. And he just literally got up in the middle of the meeting, threw all his books in his case. This was a Tuesday night, slammed his case shut, and he said, I'll see you the weekend. And he just stormed out. And I was like, you know, this is like a 24-year-old man, you know, just like. So anyway, I followed him, obviously, like a loony. And he just like sped off in his car, like leaving tyre marks on the road. And I was like, another elder came out to make sure I was all right. Stuart Knight.
Right.
I think he kind of felt a bit protective towards me because he'd already warned me about the tailors. And I was just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, blah, 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 you know, like you do, hot-headed teenager. So anyway, I I phoned him up and he weren't there. So I spoke to his dad and I just said to him, look, if his attitude doesn't change, then I'm calling everything off. And then he turns up with flowers and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, it won't happen again, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, fast forward to the wedding, it all went smoothly up until the wedding. And then, I don't know, it's like a switch flipped the day we got married. The honeymoon was awful, absolutely awful. I've never been so bored in my life. And it was just all he was bothered about was getting his leg over, basically. And obviously, because when you're a witness, you're kept apart for your whole dating time. And then all of a sudden, you're married, you're thrown into bed together. And that's quite scary. And obviously, I didn't know what I was doing. And so, like, you know, it was just like, and it was just him just trying to force it all the time. And I was just like, I couldn't wait to get home. So we got home and I remember like having a chat to mum about it and she was like, you just got to relax, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I was seriously homesick, seriously missing like not being at home with mum and stepdad and that. And then slowly as time rolled on, the controlling was unreal. Like if I needed new clothes, he would literally look through the catalogue and order my clothes. He wouldn't let me choose my clothes. When I married him, I weighed 7 stone, right? I was skinny. Within the first year of marriage, I went to 8 stone, right? But I settled at 8 stone. I mean, even 8 stone's like still, I'd love to be 8 stone now. Anyway, so because I'd put that stone on, he kept on and on and on saying that I was getting fat and I won't love you if you're fat. And, you know, he'd be like, you've got to lose weight so you can fit in these trousers and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, just stuff like that. And that just went on over years. And then there'd be evenings where we were sitting and in the lounge after dinner and he would like make fun of my nose because he always said that my nose was like a landing strip for an aeroplane because it was so big apparently. And he'd sit there and he'd go, oh, and I'd be like, what are you doing? And he'd just go, oh, again. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? And they were like, every time you turn your head, your nose is hitting me. And I was like, what? And honestly, because I was only young, I would just sit there crying. And the one evening, he left me crying for 3 hours. And then he says, oh, come over here. I'll give you a cuddle because I can't stand the noise anymore. And I was, yeah. So, and then in our house, it was like we renovated it, like we took it all back to brick. And we had this really crappy back door on. And while he was in bed once, I was ironing my work uniform and someone tried to get into the house. So anyway, he knew I was petrified after that of someone trying to break in. So the one night he took a friend home, and I didn't know when he was coming back. We didn't have mobile phones then. And all of a sudden, I just heard this scraping down the kitchen window, and after somebody had just tried to break into your house while you were there, hearing someone scraping down the kitchen window was not what I wanted to hear. And it was him. I was just like, I've got to be brave, got to pull the curtain back. And it was him. And then I just started crying immediately because I was just so shook up and nervous. And then basically I was an idiot for crying. And then, like, if we were watching a film together, if I stood up to go to the toilet, he'd go, "Where are you going?" So I'm going to the toilet. Oh, right, okay. It's like, do I need permission to even go to the toilet? But what he'd do is, because our toilet was upstairs, while I was in the bathroom, he would creep up the stairs and hide in the spare bedroom. And then he would follow me down the stairs afterwards, like pretend it was someone else up there. Because obviously I didn't know he'd creeped up, and that would just really freak me out. Oh, the one time it was our wedding anniversary, and we had a few friends round, male and female. And as they were all going, we were like giving them hugs and that, you know, saying bye. And you know, he was hugging the females as well as like shaking the hands of the males, and I would give the males a hug and the females a hug. You know, it's all literally purely friends. You know, nothing to read into it. Like, thank you for coming to our anniversary party. So I went out the house. This was midnight, so I went out the house to lock the side gate. And when I come back, the back door was shut, and I tried to open it. It was locked. I was like, why has he locked the door? So I'm knocking on the door, and he's the other side of the door. I'm like, just open the door. And he's like, no, you're staying out there tonight. I was just, why are you locking me out of my own house? And he was like, he just wouldn't answer me. So in the end, I was literally kicking. I says, I will kick this door in if you don't let me in. And eventually, I think I was kicking it for about 15 minutes. And he let me in. And I was like, why the heck have you locked me out of my own house? And it was because I'd hugged one of our male friends.
Wow.
Yeah, it was okay for him to hug our female friends. But because I gave one male friend a hug, he locked me out of the house on her wedding anniversary. So anyway, things just got from bad to worse. You know, he'd purposely try and roll me up. I was working 2 jobs and keeping the house absolutely immaculate. I wasn't allowed any money for myself, none. If I spent $1.99 out of the bank, I had to tell him what it was for. If I needed new knickers, I had to ask him if I could buy some.
Wow.
You know, just my knickers had holes in, but I still had to ask his permission to buy replacement knickers. It was a time where you couldn't use your card in a lot of shops. So if I had to take like a £10 note out of the cash point to get stuff from different shops, I used to have to produce a change and receipts as proof of what I bought. He gave me a food budget for the shopping of £35 a week. But then he demanded all these luxury foods, and then he would go absolutely mental if I went over the £35. So anyway, fast forward to 7 years of shit. I was at my lowest ebb. I had no self-confidence at all. I was just like, I was Steve's wife, you know, just I was so withdrawn. I was stressed out. I mean, we had a lot of stresses with mum and her mental health as well at the time. And it was just everything was just on my shoulders, and I just hate it. I hated my life. And then one particular elder, Richard Wilkinson, decided that he was going to start paying me some attention. So he was replacing our windows at the time, and because that's what he did as a job. And he just like, it was like he was really listening to me, you know, like he was like, oh no, you shouldn't be treated like that. Literally saying everything I wanted to hear. You know, seemed to be really supportive. And I was thinking, oh, yes, an elder is actually listening to me, because I'd spoke to elders before. And then I realised he had an ulterior motive. So anyway, I'll skip the gory details. We slept together once. Definitely not worth it. It's like 2 seconds. So anyway, fast forward over that. So Richard then felt guilty and confessed to the elders. So then I obviously had to confess. So Steve was gutted, and no surprise really. You know, if the tables had been turned, I don't know. Sometimes I wish that he had have done that to me, so I could have got out. So anyway, as time went by, he decided he wanted to stay with me, and I was like, oh, God's sake, really? So I thought I owed it to him to stay with him, because he'd been so good as to forgive me. I thought, yeah, I owe it to him. That was the worst mistake of my life. I should have got out then. Anyway, I told him, like, the way he was treating me was, he can't carry on treating me like that, because it's not, I just couldn't live like it again. So he was like, okay, he says, I do take some of the blame. He said, I'll change. And we brought up the financial situation. We were quite well off. Steve hoarded money. Unless he wanted something extravagant himself, then he would splash the cash. But for anything else, he hoarded it. So anyway, he said to me, right, you work hard, so you can have £20 a week pocket money. Brilliant.
Wow.
So I thought, wow, is better than before. So I thought, I'll take that. And then we started talking about anniversary gifts, and all the years he'd obviously bought himself his anniversary gifts, what he wanted. So I said, is that going to carry on? He was like, oh no, you get your own money now. You can save up your own money to buy me something. And I'm thinking, so you give me £20 a week, I've got to save up to buy something decent. I've got to save up for at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. So what is the point?
Wow.
Yeah, so anyway, things started to actually go okay for about 2 years. And then it just started going downhill again. That's when the physical abuse started. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the times where I'd be lying in bed going to sleep, and he would be in bed and he would just kick me and kick me and kick me until I was out the bed. The only time he would stop kicking me is if I started crying, right? Then he would stop. So I learned how to turn the waterworks on. I would just immediately start crying just to get him to stop. That happened quite a few times. Then once he slapped me around the face one evening, and I went to pick him up from work. And his brother he works with, who is an elder, he was a ministerial servant at the time. He waved at me, but because I got my head down, I didn't see him. And then when Steve got in the car, he said, oh, Tony waved at you and you just ignored him. And I was like, I didn't see him. And he said, Tony asked what was wrong with you. I says, yeah, and what did you say? He says, oh, I told him I gave you a slap last night. And Tony said, well, you must have deserved it. Then came on to the subject of children. I've always wanted to be a mum. So in that religion, if you forgive adultery, you forgive and forget, right? You don't use it as a weapon. It's gone. That's what is entailed with forgiving someone. So anyway, I brought up the subject of children when I was like 29, I think I was. So we'd been married 10 years at this point. And he said to me, "You're never going to be a mum after what you've done." And I said, "Well, you can't hold that against me because you forgave me." And so he went, the one day I was in the back bedroom and we'd had an argument and I was crying, and he came in to talk to me and he said, "How about I'll buy you a bottle of wine, that'll shut you up about kids, won't it?"
Wow.
So I told him where to shove his bottle of wine. And he went downstairs, and our spare bedroom had just been newly plastered. And I was that angry, I grabbed my Swiffer mop broom, and I literally smashed plaster off the wall with it because I was just so frustrated and angry. And I come downstairs and he was laughing, which made it worse. And he was like, "What were you doing up there?" And I says, "I've smashed plaster off the wall." He says, "Why did you do that?" I says, "Well, it was either the wall or it's going to be your head." And he just laughed at me, and I was sorry, I just can't do this anymore. So anyway, fast forward another year, and we just had our anniversary, and he was quite extravagant with the places we went on holiday, but he would not go full board. He wouldn't go full board.
Right.
It was always self-catering, and whenever we got there, it was always abroad. We'd always have to find the local supermarket. So basically, I could cook every day because he didn't want to spend the extra money and pay for someone to cook for us. So on the last holiday we had was in the October of 2009, and we went to Cyprus. Now, he had agreed to try for a baby, and by this time I'd already got pregnant and lost it. So anyway, we were not on any contraception or anything. So my periods were coming regular every month. Never again I had a positive test with him. So anyway, he'd booked this holiday, and I said to him, like, I am due on the day after we get there. And he was like, "Yeah, it's fine, don't worry, it's fine." So we got there the day after we were there. I came on my period, and he hit the roof because I was on my period and he wasn't going to be able to get his leg over. So then we'd go on these hikes, and he'd insist on taking 4 litres of water with us in a backpack, which I had to carry up some very big hills on my period in 44 degrees heat. Yeah, it wasn't a great holiday. So anyway, we got back, and it was another month, and I just stopped talking to him. The evenings he came home, I would go to bed early, and I would just lie in bed. I weren't sleeping, and he would just come up and he would say, "What's wrong with you? You've got to talk to me." And I just said, "I don't want to talk to you." And then the one day he came home, and he was like, "Right, come on, I need to know what's wrong." This was a Friday night, and I just said, "I don't want to be married to you anymore." The words just came out of my mouth, and I was like, "Oh, okay, there's no going back now." So he said, "I think you better go and talk to your parents." So I drove down to my parents, and I told them that I'd left. And to be honest, I don't think they were that surprised. I had told Mum when I was like 30 at this point. I told Mum when I was 21 that I didn't love him anymore because of the way he was, and Mum just said, "Oh, don't be silly, of course you do." And so I was just like, it must just be me that's the problem. So I um was talking to Mum, and they were like, "We need to speak to Steve." So he'd gone to his parents. So my mum rang his parents up and says, "Can Steve come down here?" So he came down to Mum's. Long story short, Dad took Steve into the hallway and asked his permission to give me a roof over my head. This is my own parent asking his permission to provide me with a roof over my head. And he gave permission. I mean, what would have happened if he'd have said no?
Yeah.
I'd have been on the street because there is no way that I was going back to that house. So anyway, we had a bit more of a chat. I did end up going back to the house that night, and I spent the night there. The next day, I packed my stuff and I walked out. Well, I'd say pack my stuff. I threw clothes in a bag and I walked out. Went back to Mum's. Mum's mental health was really quite bad at the time. And with me moving in, I feel like she just saw me as someone who could suddenly be her maid. After I told her, like, just a snippet of the stuff that Steve had done to me, she didn't bat an eyelid. And it's just like, if my boys come to me and told me what I told Mum, I would be in jail now.
Yeah.
I'd have been straight up that house. I broke his leg. It's just, I don't understand it. So anyway, I lived with Mum and Dad for 5 months, I think it was. It was like jumping from frying pan into the fire. I had to tell that if I went out, I had to tell them where I was going. And I was considering I was 30, 31 at the time. Tell them where I was going, had to be back at a reasonable time, which, fair enough, somebody else's house, I respect that. I would have to say what time I was going to be home from work. And it was just so restrictive. And then Mum was hassling me to go to the meetings. I was like, I don't want to go. I just don't, it's just not in my heart anymore. So anyway, one of my friends lent me the money to get my own flat. And I jumped at the chance. So I got my own flat. I met a lovely man. Obviously we started a relationship, so I then got in contact with Steve and said, "Divorce me, I've started a relationship, I'm freeing you up to get divorced on biblical grounds." So anyway, our divorce went through very quickly. This lovely man then moved in with me. Literally happy for 5 years. He passed away. Absolutely destroyed me. He was such a lovely man. Yeah.
Can I just ask you? I need to pop to the bathroom.
Okay.
But can you
I need to get a drink.
Oh, okay. So,
Oh, go on.
I was going to say, can you tell people your story about how you got disfellowshipped? Because you didn't even have a judicial, did you?
No, I didn't. They offered me. I had a knock at the door and 2 out. You go to the toilet if you want to.
Okay.
I had a knock at the door from 2 elders, and they basically told me that I was going to be disfellowshipped, and I said, "But I haven't been to the meetings for 6 months. I don't associate with witnesses. I don't profess to be a witness. So how can you kick me out of something that I'm not even in?" So anyway, they left, and then a week later they came and knocked on my door, and I opened the door, and they just stepped in. I didn't invite them in. They just stepped in, and they just opened their Bible and started reading to me from the Bible. Like, didn't even say hello or nothing, you know. And I was like, what are you doing? And they were like, well, we just came here to tell you that you have been disfellowshipped. And I was like, right, okay. I was like, so what's all this Bible reading at me about? And I was like, you don't come to my house and preach to me. And I sent them packing. So I was finally free. So then I just carried living my life, you know, working hard, keep a roof over my head. And then in 2015, obviously when Nigel passed away, my whole world crashed. I had major support of my family, my sister being the main one. Props to you. You got me through it. And then on the last couple of days of 2015, well, over 2015, I kind of went a bit mad because I missed out on my 20s and all the partying. So I think Emma got fed up with me dragging her out every weekend. But drinking was my way of coping. Drinking and smoking. I did take up smoking after Nigel died. And that was just my life, you know. I was on anxiety medication, drinking stupidly and smoking stupidly. So then late 2015, early 2016, Dan kind of found me. Yeah, there he is. That was New Year's Day. That was New Year's Eve. Bless him. Such a lovely man. So kind, so laid back, so generous. He's just so easygoing. I've never met anybody as laid back as him. Honestly, he is almost horizontal. But
and compared to what you was used to, yeah.
Yeah, God, yeah. It was weird because all of a sudden, like, Dan didn't care what money I spent. You know, Dan was not bothered. And I found myself explaining to him what I'd bought and why I bought it. And he'd look at me, gone out, and go, why do I need to know this? I don't need to know this, Amy. Just, you know, as long as the money's there, just do whatever you want with it. As long as the bills are paid, I don't care. And I was like, oh, this is weird. And I couldn't get it in my head. I mean, we've been married 5 years this year, and it still astounds me at how laid back he is. You know, I mean, like every other married couple, we have our ups and downs. You know, life is very stressful with twins. So, going back to when me and Dan met. Oh wow, that was September 2016. So me and Dan had been together for 2 weeks. No, sorry, let me get this right. We'd been together a couple of weeks, and he was 34 and I was 37. And we spoke about children. I told him I wanted to be a mum. And over the previous 10 years, I'd lost 4 babies. And I was like, well, I don't know if I can even carry a baby because of all my miscarriages. And he was like, I don't even know if I can have a baby because he'd never got anyone pregnant before. So we were just like, should we just go for it? You know, we just felt so comfortable with each other. And I was like, it's probably going to take 6 months to a year anyway. How wrong was I? 8 weeks later, 8 weeks into our relationship, I got pregnant. And then we found out I was pregnant on the 19th of March 2016. And then in April, we found out it was twins. Dan was delighted. I was not. I couldn't get my head around. I was angry. But I got used to the idea. I had to pretty quickly. Um, and then roll on to September. The twins weren't due till November. But they decided to come 8 weeks early. So yeah, there they are, my little lads. They were born at 31 weeks plus 5 days, weighing £3.7 and £3.4. Very traumatic. Jackson was born not breathing, so he had to be resuscitated, that's got to be the scariest, longest 5 minutes of my life. But yeah, they were in NICU for 31 days. Really stressful time because they were in separate hospitals for quite a while. And when they came home, they weighed £4.11. They were so teeny. I can't even describe just how small they were. For the first 5 months of their life, Dan was working away a lot, so I pretty much did a lot on my own, which was really hard. I ended up having a massive breakdown, and I went and moved in with his mum for a week. She helped me out so much with the boys while Dan was working. Dan's mum is an absolute godsend. You know, she's been absolutely amazing. So we finally got me leveled on medication. Oh yeah, they came 11 days before we got married.
Yeah, and you did. I was going to say, and you did this.
Yeah, 11 days.
So you popped off from the wedding reception to go and take pictures. I remember that.
Yes, we did. As soon as the ceremony was over, we went straight to the hospital. Literally me running through Burton Hospital with a wedding dress on. It was brilliant. I didn't care. We just wanted pictures with our boys. Yeah, so when we got back to our reception, that wedding day was brilliant. It was just so relaxed and so lovely. Then I did behaviour therapy, because I was just like so self-judgmental. I would really beat myself up over things. I blame myself for the boys coming early. I blame myself for Steve treating me the way he did. I blame myself for Nigel dying. I just blame myself for everything. So I did behaviour therapy. That helped me so much, and some of the practices still help me now. So yeah, and then Dan lost his job when the boys were like 10 months old. I was a stay-home mum. When the boys were 10 months old, Dan lost his job. So I went back to my old job, and Dan stayed at home with the boys till they were like 21 months. And then he got the job offer to move a couple 100 miles away. So we decided to up sticks and move from the Midlands all the way down to Kent, which is Dan's hometown, and live by the beach, basically. And it's amazing. I've met so many. There's 28 multiple mums in Herne Bay that we know of. We're all in one massive WhatsApp group together. We've got a lot of support down here. Dan's dad lives up the road. He's brilliant. Both Dan's parents are absolute legends. I don't know what we'd do without them. And the boys now, they're 4.5.
I'm going to flash a picture of them.
Cheeky little studs. Look at them.
They are. They're adorable.
Jackson on the left, Ollie on the right. He was, yeah. That was last summer.
Right. They're funny. They're definitely amusing, intelligent. Yeah.
They're hilarious.
Yeah. I miss them. So especially like with COVID, because we haven't been able to visit each other, But Yeah, talking about the boys, I did a little video for you because
Is it going to make me cry?
I don't know, but I really appreciate the mum that you are, because I feel like when we were
Oh,
kids, we were limited. Like, you can't have Play-Doh because that's going to go on the carpet. And I just love what you let your boys do, like artistic freedom. And it looks like they're always out having fun. So I've put together just a few of your photos.
oh man. I let them get messy. I'm not crying. I'm not crying.
But that's like literally just a fraction of like what the boys have got up to. And like I said, I just
No,
love that they get to like do all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, I think you're a
I
great mum.
oh, thank you. I want them to have everything I didn't. I mean, we didn't have an awful childhood. It wasn't as bad as some Jehovah's Witness kids get it. You know, I just want to make that quite clear. You know, we were well fed, we were well clothed.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't. Yeah, okay, we got spanking quite a few times.
I think time-wise though, because we were made, a lot of our time was taken up with the religion. We didn't get time like
Yeah.
your boys to have the fun that they get to have. I think so.
Yeah, there is.
I think time makes a lot of difference when you're a kid, of what you're allowed
Oh
to
yeah, of
spend time
course.
doing.
Yeah. You know, there's no pressure on my boys at all. You know, I obviously with them being premature, they have been behind in some things, which I accepted that because, you know, I've got to make allowances for them with them being premature. But like we just try, their imagination is unreal, and you know, we try our best to encourage that. And Dan used to be a teacher of young children. So he is so good with teaching them things. And obviously they go to nursery now, and they're learning different skills. But they're such amazing little boys. Yes, they've had their health problems. They still have their health problems. But I couldn't wish for better children. They push my buttons daily. And they make me, sometimes when Dan walks in the house, I walk out. But I think that's just part and parcel of having children. I always wanted two boys, and I got two boys. I was blessed. So blessed when I had them. And I'm so pleased now that I had twins, because although it's been like double the work, they're best friends. They do absolutely everything together, and you know, they're going to have that. They're going to have each other for the rest of their lives. And I know, like, even when they're upset when they go to nursery because they don't want to go, they just want to sit on the Xbox. I know they'll be fine because they've got each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, that helps me knowing that they're always there for each other. They sleep next to each other. When one goes upstairs, the other one goes upstairs. You know, they're inseparable. They really are. And I love that.
I'm just glad that you ended up like with the life you wanted. It took you a good few years to get there, but you know, I'm just so happy for you that you ended up with.
Yeah, I did get there. I mean, obviously, having children puts a lot of strain on relationships and that, you know, but usually when me and Dan, we argue like any other couple, but because he's so laid back, it's usually all cleared up within 5 minutes. You know, it's not.
I think we skipped a part as well when you went back to living at mum's when you left your marriage. Obviously, you got in touch with our brother, and then
yes,
and then I met then I met up with you for the first time I'd seen you in what was it, about 14 years or something like that.
It was 14 years. I got, because Mum used to have Bradley, our Rob's eldest, and then obviously Abby, when Abby came along, I think Abby was 2 weeks old, and I was living at Mum's then, and I went round to see. Was I living there then? I don't know. I wasn't. I was still married to Steve at that point when Abby was born. It was Livy. Livy was like 3 weeks old. Well, anyway, I'd been in touch with Rob. I'd got Rob's phone number because like we babysat Bradley now and again for him. Which obviously Steve, because he didn't want kids, he didn't want his life changing. That's why he was the type of person that he walked in the back door and I used to have to take his rucksack off his back and take his lunchbox out, and then
hi Flynn, can you read that?
Oh yeah, hi Flynn, I miss you.
Hope you're doing all right,
mate. Yeah, and I would have to like put everything out for his shower. I'd have to make sure his towel was there, his clean underpants were there and everything. He was babied. And I said to him, I either feel like I'm your child or I'm your mother. I don't feel like your wife. So anyway, once we had Bradley and Steve was in such a strop, Bradley was like 8 months old, I think, at the time, and Bradley just death stared him until he smiled. And then as soon as Steve smiled, Bradley relaxed. And it was like, if a baby can pick up on, an atmosphere. So anyway, so I got back in touch with Rob, and Rob invited me for a drink at the motels. And he told me that you were coming, but he hadn't told you that I was going to be there. So yeah, it was very strange at first.
Yeah. I feel
like,
what
were your thoughts? Your first thoughts when you walked in?
Well, I thought you was Rob's girlfriend's friend because you kind of both had the same hair. So I walked in and saw where you were all sitting, and I kind of acknowledged Rob, and I went to the bar, and then I looked back at the table, and then looked back, I was like, that's not the girl I thought it was. And I just thought, oh my God, is that Amy? Because I hadn't seen you for 14 years, and I was like, whoa. So I think I was just like, somebody tell me what's going on.
She's aged a bit.
I was just like, what's going on, guys? And then you obviously told me about you'd left and you was back at home, and it didn't take us long at all to forget that we'd been separate for 14 years. You know what I mean?
No.
And I'm glad that we've got such a good relationship back so quick.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're not just my sister. You're my best friend.
Mm.
And you know, I just feel like I could just talk to you about anything,
And I
and
always,
I know that you won't judge me.
yeah, I always say to people in the group, like my XJW group, never give up hope. Because
Yeah,
who would have
definitely
thought,
don't.
who would have thought after 14 years I'd get my sister back? And I
Yeah.
always say, like, Rob left 4 years after me, then you left
Mm,
10 years after that. And I'm like, never
mm,
give up hope, because you don't know what's going on in your Jehovah's Witness siblings' lives. That,
yeah.
like you, they might be stuck there wanting to
Yeah.
leave but not get the opportunity. And then when that happens, you know,
All I can say is just be there for them, be ready for them for when, you know, if they do come out, um just be there, just like you and Rob have. You
mm,
know, you were just my instant support group,
yeah,
and I couldn't have got through it without you guys. You know, you guys and Dad as well. You know,
yeah,
I seen Dad. Now this was another bugbear of mine. I love Dad so much. He's an absolute legend. But like Dad, in the 12 years I was married to Steve, I saw Dad twice. And I said to him, like, why didn't you come and see me? And he said because he didn't like Steve.
mm,
And I was just like that. I wish he had have. I didn't know where Dad lived. I didn't know how to go about getting his address. Otherwise, I would have gone and seen him. You know, I drove, so
yeah,
I didn't have Dad's phone number, and it was. Yeah, I just feel sad for those lost years. You know,
yeah,
but I just think to myself now, look, we've got each other now. We've got all of our future ahead of us. I'm finally in a place where I want to be.
mm-hmm,
Um, so just enjoy life.
yeah.
Just be nice.
Thank you, Ant. I appreciate that comment.
But it's true. It is true.
So, what advice, if any, this is putting you on the spot though, would you give to if there's an ex Jehovah's Witness that happens upon this chat and they're in the same situation that you was in? What advice would you give them?
What in the domestic violence
Yeah,
situation?
or just a
Get out.
marriage that they want to get out.
Just get out. Just go. And don't look back. A month after I'd gone, Steve came to my parents' house, and he was like just throwing his dummy out the pram, saying there was no point in living. And he was like kicking Mum's sofa and like turning on crocodile tears and that. And I was just like, Mum and stepdad were sitting on the stairs because they wanted to sort of give us some privacy, but I didn't want them far away
Mm,
because he'd been physical before as well. I didn't, I wanted to know that I was still protected there. So anyway, I just got up and walked out the room and said, I'm never coming back. You're gonna have to deal with that. And I walked out, I walked past my parents on the stairs, and I said to stepdad, can you please just tell him to go? And I heard Steve say, you've got to make her talk to me. And stepdad said, I am not making her do anything. And I was so proud of stepdad then because I was thinking, yes, you're actually sticking up for me. The day that takes me back to the day that I married Steve, stepdad sat me down and he said, you don't have to do it. You don't have to marry him because he obviously saw what Steve was like and I was blinded. And I was like, it's okay, I know what I'm doing. And he was like, Amy, seriously, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the cost of the wedding. Don't worry about anybody else. You don't have to do it. And I regrets.
how you wish
But
you could
anyway,
replay that day.
yeah. So we pulled up outside of the hall, and a close friend of stepdad's was driving. We pulled up outside the hall, and I was like, I can't do it. And he just looked at me, and I was like, I can't do it. Take me home now. And he was like, oh, don't be silly, you'll be fine. I was like, no, seriously, take me home now. And he wouldn't take me home. So I just sat in the car, and he was like, you can't sit here all day. So I had to get out. I had no choice. I was just like, either that or start running home. But again, if I hadn't have gone through that, I wouldn't have the experience I've got now. I wouldn't be as strong as I am now. Because any man tries to treat me like that again, and they are gone. Seriously, like you. I would not put up with anything like that again.
And I didn't mention either, like, the part with my ex, he was very much controlling with what I wore as well. Like, there was a long lace dress, and he actually did a nice thing for once. I saw it in a shop. I didn't buy it. And then the one time, I think I got him from work, and he says, do you want to go out tonight? And I says, well, I haven't really got anything to wear. And he says, well, why don't you go and look in your wardrobe? And it was hung on my wardrobe. So he'd been back to the shop and brought it for me. And I was like, that's nice. But then, because it was a full length kind of lace dress that you only wore like hot pants, shorts and a bra underneath, he wouldn't let me wear it unless I was out with him. Because he knew people would look at me in that dress. He threatened to burn some of my short dresses, and he'd be like, you're not wearing that mini skirt when you're not out with me. So, and before I left and moved in with him, I told him that leaving the religion, I want to dye my hair bright pillar box red. And he says to me a few months into the relationship, after I've done that, you need to dye your hair back to brown because people keep staring at you.
Do you know, that's another thing. Steve wouldn't let me dye my hair. He wouldn't let me cut it. And I had waist length brown hair, and I used to have women who was going to the meeting saying, when are you going to do something with your hair? When are you going to have it in a style? And I was like, just so embarrassed because he wouldn't let me do anything with it.
But at that point, I says to him, look, I told you my plans before you asked me to be your girlfriend. If you don't like it, there's the door. So one advice I would definitely give to somebody, if you're in a relationship and that person is trying to tell you what to wear, whether it's your clothes, your makeup, your hair, get out of the relationship.
Get out. Yeah, red flags, major red flags.
That's because how it mostly starts, control of you.
Yeah. It all starts at that point. And Steve's starting point was the clothes, comments about my weight, money, and then it escalates. So yeah, get out. I mean, I shave my hair now, and Dan's just like, it's your hair, Amy. Do what you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he's not bothered. But yeah, I am gonna have to cut off in 5 minutes because I've got to go and pick the kiddie winks up.
I think we're ready to round up. I mean, it's been hard for me to get some stuff out there, but I feel good that I've got stuff out there, like I said earlier, because you know, people who come across this will know, listening to mine and yours experiences, that they're not alone. There's people to reach out to. If you're a Jehovah's Witness or you're fading, I run a group called Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses Unite. You know, you can come and join and speak to people in there for support and advice. So yeah, don't hesitate to do that especially if you're in the position Amy was in. So yeah, it's been a good chat. I hope it benefits some people, and I haven't got the energy to read any victim stories at the end of this one. So I feel like,
that's understandable.
Yeah, it's been draining, but yeah. So.
And I've got to go and tackle 2 4-year-olds.
I'm just gonna go and have a big black strong coffee, I think, after that. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I've got to. Yeah. Oh, I'm tired just thinking about it.
So thank you for watching, guys. And
thank you.
We'll speak to you soon, no doubt.
Bye.